Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. This week's photo of the week was submitted by Usha, who's an intermediate photographer from Wisconsin, and I want to say an apology to all the people who participated in our community assignment number 3, and the assignment was to photograph a stranger, somebody that you didn't know before you approached them about taking their picture. We were supposed to post sort of our favorite image from that assignment as the photo of the week a couple of weeks ago. We were on our Death Valley National Park workshop and we were having a lot of trouble with our internet connection there. So we've had to put this off. And so I just want to apologize that it took longer, and also want to say a big thank you to all the people who participated in this assignment. I want to get right into it today, talk about the backstory and the metadata here. Usha shot this image at a music venue where 3 bands were performing. She wanted to move up front and try and find a seat where she could be close to the bands. And as she was going up there, she saw this couple sitting close to the seat that she was going to take to photograph the bands, and she decided to approach this woman. She paid her a compliment. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, and asked her if she could take her picture, and the woman was very much into it. And Usha says that not only did she go on to get this picture and some other pictures, she thinks that she made a friend. This is somebody that she will stay in touch with. Usha shot this with a Canon 5D. She used a 50mm f1.4 lens, and she also used some on-camera flash. Talk more about that in just a second. Usha at ISO 3200 exposed the file at f2.5 for 1/6 of a second. So let's talk about a couple of technical things connected to the metadata that might be takeaways for you if you wanted to do this kind of photography. One of the things I'll mention here is the flash, and Usha's shooting handheld. So one cool thing that flash can do for you in really low light is that it can let you shoot at lower shutter speeds than you might get away with otherwise. This is a 50mm lens, and it's pretty hard to handhold a 50 and get anything sharp at shutter speeds much lower than around a 60th of a second. Usha's gone all the way down to a 1/6 of a second. How could she do that here? Because the flash is the main source of illumination, and the flash in this low light being the main light, the duration of the flash, on camera flash, I'm just going to guess here and say on average that's probably going to be somewhere around 1,000th of a second or 1,500th of a second. And if there's not that much ambient light and you hold the camera really still as the shutter is dragging, what does that mean? As the shutter stays open longer than the flash fires, then the flash, being your main light source, can really help to freeze that part of the illumination on the subject. 1,500th of a second duration on the flash is way fast enough with a 50mm lens to make that part of the exposure seem sharp. And so you can get a sharp edge to parts of the portrait. And you're really seeing that here if you look close. You can really sort of see this in the idea of the lips right here. You get a sense of some sharp areas of specular highlights, but then a little bit of a blur right here in the crease of the lips, and you're getting a sense of that up here in the eyes. So I just wanted to mention that about flash. I think the flash has done something else here. Go ahead and say that. It's gotten a beautiful catch light in the eyes and made the eyes really come alive, and that could be really important in any kind of situation, including a low light situation like this, where you might want to photograph somebody just right there, but they're not in the greatest quality of light, or maybe the light is so low you can't even shoot. So love what the flash is doing here on a couple of different levels. The other thing I'm really enjoying from a technical standpoint is this particular lens. I'm a big fan of a fast 50mm lens for doing these kind of impromptu portraits. In this case, it's Canon's 50mm f1.4. Nikon also makes a 50 f1.4. Those are both great lenses. They're affordable lenses. The other thing I like about these lenses is that they're lightweight and they're unobtrusive. They're smaller lenses. They have a low profile, and that can work in your favor. Why fast? Shooting at shallow depth of fields like Usha has done here, f2.5, can really help you to simplify a background that you may not have that much control over. You get this person to say yes, but maybe you're not able to get them to leave from where they are and go somewhere else to take their picture. That's certainly possible, to ask them to pose somewhere. But if we just want to shoot her sitting where she is, working a shallow depth of field here is just great. There's so many other things that I really like about this portrait, in addition to what the flash has done here and the shallow depth of field. I love how close Usha is. Another really neat thing about the 50mm lens is on a full frame sensor camera, it's going to encourage you to get physically very close. Because to fill the frame with a face on a 50mm lens, you're just going to be a couple of feet or so away. But the 50 is wide enough that it still gives you the opportunity to show some atmosphere and make more of a layered portrait. And the other thing that I like about the 50 is even in this close, it tends to render the perspective on the different features of the face in a way that looks fairly close to the way we see. If you came in this close with a wider lens or semi-wide, you might start to really get some perspective distortions, like the nose getting much bigger than the rest of the face and so on and so forth. 50 tends to do a pretty good job of that. I love the orientation of the head and the face here in this shot. By that I mean we call this a 3/4 pose, where if we could see the ear here, we would see one ear and not see the other ear. It's a dynamic orientation of the face and head because it ends up showing us the third dimension of the face, not just across and up and down, but the side of the face. And it also, a lot of times, is dynamic. You do get one ear. You get one eye larger than the other. You get one side of the face bigger than the other. And it can tend to put some dynamic impact into the portrait. Another thing that I love here is just how relaxed this person seems to be. Obviously, Usha's made a great connection here. This person's looking right into the camera. This is an easy smile. Even the hand here is showing something that's very relaxed, and I'm really enjoying that. Something else that I like here is sort of this idea of a portrait where it's all about harmony of color. The fact that Usha's shooting in warm light here, and then you've got warm skin tone, but a lot of the other highlights in here are warm and they harmonize with the skin. You don't end up with a stray color that really sort of overwhelms the portrait subject. What you really have is the eyes being essentially almost black and white in high contrast. They really pop out above and beyond everything else. Everywhere else you look, there's sort of a really beautiful harmony of color. So I'm really enjoying what's happening with color in this portrait. A few other things that I want to say here at the end today. I want to say a huge thank you to all the people who had the courage to do this assignment. I've identified sort of another myth besides the myth of talent in photographing, doing a lot of street photography, impromptu photography of people, and this is a big part of some of our workshops now, street portraiture and next step. And I call it the 90-90 myth. And the 90-90 myth says that 90% of photographers are anywhere from sort of afraid to very afraid to do this kind of approach. But the amazing thing is that about 90% of people will say yes, and a large percentage of the ones that say yes, you'll have the experience that Usha had. You'll end up becoming friends with a lot of these people. And the 90-90 myth is a very powerful story that we're caught up in that's keeping us from having a better life. It's keeping us from having more community for ourselves and for our work. It's separating us from something that's just amazing that's around us all the time. If you can get out of the 90-90 myth, if you can deal with it in a couple of ways. If you can become 10% of photographers who deal with this fear and you go past it, and on the 10% of people that say no, you can, number one, step away from them and just keep going and not carry that with you, except to say, I'll see them again maybe, and they'll say yes. No is just not yet. And you're able to have the mental discipline to do those two things, then a whole world is going to open up to you that I think will truly be amazing. And a couple of real practical things that you can do. Pay people a genuine compliment. That's part of what Usha did here. She told this woman that she thought that she had a beautiful face. And when the compliments are genuine, then you feel good about it. And the one thing that people that end up sort of becoming experts and successful at things, the one most powerful thing they all have in common, they had a lot of support for what they were doing. So people need support, and when we can give that in a genuine way, we make a powerful connection. Slow down. Slow way down when you approach. Go much slower than you would typically go, and leave space for the person to engage. And the other thing is and have a good time watching yourself doing something that may be new for the very first time. Instead of just buying into how uncomfortable it is, actually become conscious enough to be, at the same time that you're doing this, reserve a part of your consciousness for just watching what's happening, and you'll learn a lot more in the process. Huge thank you to Usha and her beautiful portrait subject here for creating this beautiful portrait and sharing it with us in the Mindful Eyes community. Assignment number 3, and also on the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. Have a great weekend, everybody.